Check 1, 2. I couldn't get it to print on one page. This is hard.
Good evening and welcome to our in-person public meeting, as well as our very first live streamed meeting. And of course, welcome to those who will be viewing at another time. So good evening, Dr. Cascone, my fellow members of the board, our student liaisons, and Mrs. Flowers. This is our first public, well, I should do this first. Calling the meeting to order. This is our first public meeting in 15 months. And my first as president in public. And I just want you to know how happy we are to be here and how happy we are to have you with us. During this transition period, we are offering the public the opportunity to submit questions in advance of the meeting. If we do not get a chance to address your question this evening, it will be addressed before the next public meeting. We also would ask that if you come to the podium, if you would kindly put on your mask, otherwise you are free to remove it while you are seated in the auditorium. And Mrs. Flowers, roll call, please.
Roll call. Mrs. Huerta,
Here.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Here.
Mr. Rothstein,
Here.
Vice President Tunnicliffe,
Here.
President Trick Scales.
Here.
Okay, thank you. My apologies, we're just locating the flag.
We haven't done this in a while, and so we just realized we're missing the flag. So shall we pledge an abstention? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In consideration of the closed meeting minutes of May 10th and the public meeting minutes of May 5th, 10th, and 20th, 2021, may I have a motion?
Yes, so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Vice President Tunnicliffe. Any discussion? There being none, Mrs. Flowers, would you do the honors?
Ms. Huerta,
Yes.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Vice President Tunnicliffe,
Yes.
President Trick Scales.
Yes.
Thank you.
And before we have our student liaison report, I just feel compelled to just let everyone know that our own student liaison, Ms. Andre Celestine, made history last week as she broke a 41-year record in the 100-millimeter hurdle and also took medals for the long jump and the high jump. And I know we'll hear more about it, but I could not say that. And we are so very proud of you, Andre. And so if our student liaisons would please give their report.
Is it on? Okay. Well, firstly, thank you so much. Honestly, I didn't really think anybody knew about it. Like, I thought it was just kind of like I just ran the race and then like everybody outside of track just wouldn't know. So like for everybody to really be open and tell me congratulations, it really means a lot. It really truly means a lot. Since this is our last meeting, I just wanted to say a few things. I don't really have anything written. Um, but to the board and Ms. Connors, I know, I'm not too sure if you guys know, but I am a newcomer to West Orange. I came my sophomore year. And for me to be a newcomer and you guys to still give me the chance is the biggest, it's the hugest honor. And I cannot thank you guys enough for truly listening to our ideas with an open mind. And it's just been a wonderful experience. And I'm so happy to have been able to serve for the students and be a part of the board and in this setting. And it's really a huge honor. And I cannot thank you guys enough.
Hi. I would just actually like to echo a lot of the same sentiments to the board, it being our last meeting and also our first in-person meeting. I was very excited to see that I had a nameplate. I really could not believe it. So I just have this really brief little blurb just as a kind of thank you to everyone. It truly has been an honor to work with such a responsive and cooperative board and administration, and that really seems to honor the student voice. It's really easy and happens far too often that students are offered the illusion of involvement and they set up this position and only go that far. But I can say definitively that working with this board has never even once felt like that. Every idea and concern that Andre and I held was met with genuine interest and care from the board, and even sometimes responded to, and adjustments were made in response to the things that we presented. It's really something that I never took for granted, and it was something that I am tremendously grateful for. So thank you to the board and to Dr. Cascone for taking this genuine interest and honoring the student voice. And I look forward to seeing how next year's liaisons and the board can collaborate. And as a parting reminder, over this past year, the administration has seen a great deal of change in policy, change in programs in response to the reignition of social movements and social efforts. But I think it's really important to state that change is never just a moment. It cannot be this immediate, situational response done to appease the, immediate, outcry from the public. I hope and I truly trust that the board will continue to maintain their social awareness and preserve these newfound efforts to ensure an equitable climate for students and administrators in these coming years. To the class of 2021, it has been an honor to serve as your student liaison for the 2020-2021 school year. This year has been rough with a capital R, but we've made it through in one piece, maybe a little battered, but mostly together. And I think that is certainly a triumph. I celebrate your strength and your resilience. And Andre and I wish you the best of luck in all of your future endeavors. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna. As board liaisons, you two young ladies have been so astute and so insightful. And I say all the time that we can learn so much from our young people. And so we've learned a lot from you. I can't see you down there, but we've learned a lot from you, and we'll continue to stay on that path that you've helped guide us on all along. So thank you for being who you are. And now, Dr. Cascone, we'll move right into the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Trigg-Scales. Good evening, members of the board, invited guests, and members of our public who are joining us here for this somewhat auspicious occasion of our first in-person board meeting in 15 months. We do apologize for the temperature in here, as sometimes happens when it rains, it pours, and our HVAC went out. So we appreciate you being here tonight with us. Before I hit upon some school district items, I would be remiss if I did not speak to the tragedy which affected our neighboring community and school district in South Orange and Maplewood. I received a notification earlier today that there was another incidence of senseless and tragic gun violence in South Orange, Maplewood that took the life of one high school student and critically injured a second, last I heard. And so if I could just ask all those in attendance to just bow your heads in a moment of silence for the victims, their families, and the South Orange Maplewood community. Thank you. I did send out a communication today to our community, really just messaging the same. Also just on more of sort of the business end of things that I've been in communication with local police department, police chief, just looking to understand, and which was confirmed that the incident had no nexus with the West Orange community, and that as they received any relevant intelligence that they would certainly pass that along. Tomorrow at our principal meetings, I've added a school security briefing to the agenda, just to make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's with our plans. And of course, as reflected in our budget presentation, we are taking advantage of the funding through the state, through the Alyssa's Law grant, to continue to upgrade and update, modernize our security features in our building. So again, I did reach out to Dr. Taylor, Superintendent of South Orange today, and extend the support of our community to them. And of course, our hearts go out. So wow, this year is it's not going out like a lamb for sure, going out like a lion. And I think that's more a function of the fact that different from last year, we're actually, including this board meeting, we have the ability to get together and convene, and we're able to do many more events. If you recall, last year we were scarcely able to convene, commune at all, right? We did drive-bys, which our staff and folks did a great job with, but so we have the business of that. But there's a pace that's ongoing right now, and I think part of it is that we're seeing this kind of opening of society, and there's a lot that comes with that, not the least of which are the ever evolving and changing guidelines, and not only how they impact our current lives, but also how they impact our schools and the operations. Of course, as you know, those guidelines have probably impacted and changed the least for schools, which I understand is a source of contention and debate, and I get it. But my message is clear, which is that until those guidelines change, we are beholden to to abide them. So busy. We have the board and administration is busy. Of course, we have the board's goal-setting town hall, which will happen on June 16th. They may speak about it later in their reports. The survey that we sent out to the community is now closed, or at least it will be closed, I believe, by the end of, I guess it times out later this evening. And then the subcommittee that's responsible for planning the presentation, which is Vice President Tunnicliffe and Mr. Rothstein, along with myself, will start to unpack that data and really kind of identify some findings from that can be presented at the town hall, as well as some guiding focus questions through which we can gather some additional qualitative feedback, which can help inform the district's goal setting for the upcoming school year. We also administratively have been hard at work at developing the safe return plan. We are, and I know I've been promising its release, and it is coming tomorrow. Today, we are in the process of doing our translations of the plan and the Google form, soliciting feedback into Spanish and Haitian Creole. So that's taken us a little bit longer than we thought. But I do understand that we will be releasing not only the draft plan, but also the Google form through which community members can provide any feedback, insights, information, expertise, which they might have to inform those various areas of the plan. Now, I should qualify that and say that we expect that we will submit a more detailed plan to the state for reopening, not unlike the one we submitted last year. This is sort of a precursor to that. It's really kind of an abridged plan, and it's connected to, as I've explained in previous community communications, it's connected to the ESSER 3 funding or the American Rescue Plan funding. We have to submit a safe return plan in order to have eligibility for that funding. But that being said, it also is a constructive exercise on some level, because while there are certain guidelines that have not changed, and as such has made granular level planning for the fall somewhat difficult, in spite of, I think, some folks' frustration with my continued emphasis of that point, it is a true reality, which is that until we gain guidance on mask wearing in schools, until we gain guidance on what the social distance requirements will be in school, and until we gain guidance to some extent on what vaccination requirements will be, and if there will be differentiated expectations or requirements for the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated, those are really, really critical questions that are arguably the most central to our planning. We simply don't have guidance on that. But we will plan, and we are planning and doing work as we may to prepare for the opening of schools. What do I mean by that? Well, our end game is that our schools are fully occupied and we're open all day, every day. So it's with that lens that we're planning. What is one way in which we can plan for that? Well, we need to understand in ensuring that we have as many of our spaces that are occupiable as possible. So in upcoming board meetings, you're going to see some additional information shared. I'm not going to belabor it tonight, but some of the work that we're doing presently with our architects and engineers to develop a scope of work for the HVAC work to be done this summer. So that safe return plan will be released. There will be a letter that's released with the various links through which you can access the return plan, as well as the Google form through which you can submit feedback to the community. A couple of just I think noteworthy recognitions to speak about. In my community communication this past week, I kind of heralded, if you will, that we are in Pride Month. LGBTQIA. I apologize. It's been a long day, and that's a lot of letters, but important ones nonetheless. And it is Pride Month. And my sense is that while we've become quite comfortable as a society with banging the gong, if you will, for some of these other months, and with justifiable cause, my sense is that perhaps we do so as a society, perhaps with just a little reluctance, unjustifiable reluctance when it comes to Pride Month. So it is with great pride that I speak to Pride Month tonight, that I speak to all the members of our community, whether that's in our families, our staff, professional educators, and last but not least, our students who identify within those groups, to hear directly from your superintendent that I celebrate you, and we are committed as a school district to not only creating spaces in which you're welcomed and celebrated, but also in that we're approaching our curriculum in the same manner that we are relative to some of our other groups that tend to be marginalized, disenfranchised, and not represented accurately in the historical narrative. So I wish you all a happy Pride Month. And finally, it is on some level a shame that we have to continue to get out there in front and condemn. In this day and age in our society, we have to continue to make these proclamations against hate. And in this particular case, I'd like to speak about anti-Semitism. The month of May and continuing saw some of the most the highest volume of anti-Semitic acts amongst other groups as well in our country. We join our West Orange Township partners who have also gone out and will be signing a proclamation as well to just simply reiterate that hate of any kind, including that of anti-Semitism, has no place in this community, won't be tolerated. There will be a zero tolerance policy in our school district. And at the same time, we will continue to strive in looking at our curriculum and looking at our programs to ensure that we're presenting as balanced and enlightened and instructive and formative curricular experience so that we are graduating students who are not part of the problem, but part of the solution. And with that, I would just, we in the upcoming weeks, of course, we'll have another board meeting on the 21st prior to the high school graduation, but we will certainly have a number of events that take place between now and then. And I look forward, as you know, the board does, to attending them, whether it's our kindergarten moving up ceremonies, our fifth grade moving up ceremonies, and maybe even some of our middle school graduations. And so I had the pleasure of attending the Betty Madalena Early Learning Center graduation. Great. It was the best part of my day, certainly. So we congratulate all those students and those families, and would just say, and I know I'm running on time here a little bit, but I would just say, I really want to just thank the Betty Madalena staff, those parents, those students, for our little ones. It's challenging so greatly for the virtual piece, and to see them graduate, and the proud families and the proud students was truly uplifting. And so to all those going through, parents and students going through moving up ceremonies and rites of passage, if you will, I congratulate you. I'm so proud of you this year, perhaps more than any other. With that, I would turn the platform back over to President Scales. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cascone. Are we,
Oh, indeed.
okay,
Indeed. So we do have an HIB report. Ms. Flowers, would I kindly ask for you to pass this to the board members? I appreciate that. We do have one HIB report. Ms. Flowers, appreciate that. We'll share the report with you. This report was shared with me by the district's anti-bullying coordinator. I did have an opportunity to review the executive summary. The executive summary, from my perspective, was pretty straightforward. And I did not have any additional questions, and did concur with the findings of the investigation that it was not confirmed as harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And this report is included later on in the agenda for your consideration.
thank you, Dr. Cascone.
And that is my report, my HIB report, President Scales.
I think I'll wait for board reports. We'll do it following the presentation, and then that way we can comment on the presentation as well as individual board reports.
I'm sorry, President Scales, I didn't hear you. Oh, my goodness gracious, indeed. Yes, my apologies, and I couldn't quite. Yes, so I mentioned some invited guests. You will notice that on the agenda this evening is the renewal of our contract with Maschio's Food Services, which is the company that provides, all of our food services. I thought, considering, Ms. Flowers and I thought that considering that they were up for renewal, this was a good opportunity for Mr. Bakelman and his team to come in and present. We are now coming to the end of our second year in partnership with Maschio's. And of course, before I turn it over, I just have to publicly again thank them, and they'll speak to this in the presentation, the Herculean effort in which they've been engaged for 15 months now to ensure that those food insecure families continue to have access to food. So a round of applause for our food services folks. So with that, I turn the microphone over to you, Mr. Baker.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Cascone, Ms. Flowers, distinguished members of the West Orange Board of Education. My name is Jeff Bakelman. I'm the Regional Support Manager and Business Development Manager for Maschio's Food Services. Tonight, myself and my colleagues, Lori, take this up? Okay, because you're having a hard time. Ooh, thank goodness. Along with my distinguished colleagues, to my left, our food service director on site, Ms. Lori Krugel, and a special guest, Lynn Mahoney, who is our area supervisor and one of our corporate chefs and our specialist for farm to school programs, joined us as well. Interesting year to say the least. It's wonderful to see you all. It's great just to get out. You know, you and us, we are all in in the service business, and we thrive on interaction. It's been a challenge the last year and a half without having this kind of interaction. And I'll tell you, it took me more than a minute to tie a tie this morning because it's the first time. And in hindsight, that might have not been the best selection with a jacket and tie tonight, but I'll make it work, Dr. Casco. It's wonderful to see you all. And again, tonight, I'd just like to give you a brief presentation on what some of the things we have achieved this year and last year, and where we started, where we are, and where we want to be. First off, there's several new board members here since we were first awarded the contract for West Orange Schools. So a little history lesson for you. In May of 2019, as required by USDA and Department of Education, food service is required to seek competitive proposals every 5 years, every 5-year cycle. So in May of 2019, it was the 5-year cycle for West Orange Schools. The district advertised a solicitation for food services. Maschio's was one of 2 companies that responded and submitted a proposal. The proposals were evaluated and scored based on criteria determined in the RFP, and subsequently recommended for the award. And in July of 2019, West Orange Board of Education took action and awarded Maschio's the food service contract for the 19-20 school year. Our food service contract is renewable annually up to 4 renewals after the initial award. So we've completed our second, well, almost completed our second year, and what a couple of years it's been. But before that, just a little bit about Maschio's. For those of you who may not know, Maschio's is a local New Jersey-based food service company. We're what's known as a regional company, as opposed to some of the large multinational companies. We're locally owned, family owned, been in operation for over 29 years. But I do like to boast that although we are a regional company, a local regional company, we are the largest provider of pre-K through 12 food services in the state, meaning we serve more school districts than any other company in New Jersey. In New Jersey alone, we serve over 190 public, private, and charter schools, K through 12 districts. Our company has 2 owners, and it's led by Mr. Ken Torsha, who is our CEO, and of course, Mr. Frank Maschio, who could not make it this evening, our president and namesake. So we started off in the 2019 school year, 2020 school year. We had a very smooth transition. Everything was going splendidly. The transition was smooth. The staff came on board, transitioned with extraordinary resolve. And our participation, which was one of our key goals, was to increase student participation in both breakfast and lunches. Everything was firing on all cylinders until February of 2020. Well, actually, March 12th, to be more specific, was kind of when we got thrown a little curveball. That is when life, as we all know it, changed dramatically. But through that change, we rose to the level, and I greatly appreciate the compliments, Dr. Casco. We are inherently humble, so it's difficult for us to pat ourselves on the back, but it was, no question, a Herculean effort by everyone involved. And I can only express my gratitude to my colleagues, to my team, to Lori, to Lynn. They're the ones who really made it happen. And of course, Lori's predecessor, who some of you may know, Mr. Joshua Kreutz, who really embraced this community and was heavily involved along the way. But with that said, we adapted immediately. We seek to understand. Information wasn't very easily accessible, so the goalpost moved quite frequently. But with that, we adjusted as well and made sure that what we were doing was compliant, was in line with what the school district was trying to achieve. We were involved in your planning committees. We made public appearances at board meetings, answered questions to the public because we wanted everyone to be safe, comfortable, and protected at all times. I believe we had done that stellarly. Some of our achievements in the first year, now, albeit that first year was a challenging year. I can't tell you in the over 30 plus years I've been in this K-12 business, I thought I've seen it all, but I could never expect what occurred on that day, March 12th, 2019. But it happened, and we adjusted, and even still, we still had some great accomplishments that I'd like Lori to share with you. I'll talk about the first year, since that really wasn't on her watch, and I don't want to make her uncomfortable, but despite that, we still started a joint culinary program, a pre-apprenticeship program with Nancy Mullen. She approached me with this wonderful idea. She got an opportunity to apply for a grant, and we worked together on a concept, and we worked together to write I gave her some ideas to put in for the grant. She did an excellent job, and guess what? As a result, West Orange was one of 6 schools in the state to receive a $100,000 grant for a joint partnership accredited pre-apprenticeship program for culinary arts. We were involved with that. Our corporate chef, Steve Escobedo, and many of you may or may not know, Nancy was a former foodie. She was a trained culinarian. Her husband's a culinarian. We're all in the same business, so this was fun. And we put a lot of effort into developing a program for young students who wanted to pursue a career in the culinary arts where we could lend our experience and provide apprenticeship skills, real learning experiences from real people on the job. And they would also get college accreditation for the classes and the apprenticeship programs that we have developed. So when they do graduate and they decide they want to pursue that career in culinary arts, they're already ahead of the game. So it's a wonderful program, and I'm really grateful that we were asked to be involved in that, and we continue to work with Ms. Mullins on that program for the following year. From March 3rd to June 30th, you could see the number there. We served nearly 140,000 meals. It's incredible. We served meals. It was grab and go at first, of course, it still is, but it was all done remotely out of school buses and parking lots on cold winter, stormy, rainy, uncomfortable days. Our staff from West Orange never missed a day. They really embraced what the efforts were, because the common goal was it was for their community. And that's, it kind of chokes me up when I say it. And even over the summer, we expanded that program to weekends, to include weekends and holiday feeding. So students and families were receiving meals for 7 days a week, 2 to 3 times a week in some cases, from a variety of locations. Even got to the point, and Lori may discuss this later, where we still wanted to make sure we served all constituents in your community, even those who couldn't make it to the sites to get meals. So we coordinated with your transportation department to deliver meals to individuals' homes who couldn't get here to pick them up. And you should all be proud of that commitment to your community, as I am. We offered a wide range of menus. We did not want to opt for convenience and just go with processed foods. We wanted to make sure that the meals that were going home, because we didn't know how long this was going to last, we wanted to make sure they were healthy and nutritious, because this may be the only meals that some of your students were receiving. So with Lynn's guidance, we embraced many of our vendors, and we received donations from not just from food banks, but from growers, from local farm growers, from the U.S. Department of Defense. Never turned down fresh fruit and vegetables, and that was included in all of our meals. We also made a lot of made from scratch meals, baked chicken. That also helped us keep many of our staff employed. Those who really wanted to continue to work, we made every effort to keep them on. We couldn't utilize the entire staff, but for those who really desperately needed it, especially those who were receiving health insurance that wanted to make sure they didn't lose it during the pandemic, we made sure every one of them had their hours fulfilled so they didn't lose their benefits. So we took advantage of that, and we weren't sure exactly what the financial repercussions would be. That wasn't what the priority was. We discussed this with Dr. Cascone, and we all agreed. We wanted to do what was right for the community and what was right for our employees. It has a really good ending. We'll get to that in the other slides. So all our meals were freshly prepared on site. There's just a few snapshots on one of the pages of some of the meals that went out. They weren't your just average gas station sandwich that you would receive. Everything was made fresh every day, pre-packaged with care, and given to your community, meals that we would be proud to serve, and so should you. Now I want to turn it over to Lori, who's going to talk about some of the accomplishments we've had since our current year and some of the things we have in mind for years to come.
Yeah, no. Well, most of you have probably seen me in the background, running here, running there behind Josh, because that's what I was doing the last few years here. I joined West Orange. I've been in school food service for 17 years now. I came from the school district in Long Branch, which is also a big school district. And they requested my help here in West Orange as the food service manager. So I have been behind Josh doing all the behind the scenes motion. This will be my 4th year in December. I'll be here 4 years. But again, I'm not always recognizable because I'm behind the scenes. I'm not up front like him. So, but I have followed in his footsteps, and I really tried to make the transition as seamless as possible. Right behind him when he had left and I had taken over the district, and I haven't had any major complaints about taking over, and things seem to, again, start out fine until March hit. So as a new director, I was faced with some very different challenges, something that I've never had to deal with before. But again, we did everything in our power to make sure everybody that needed to be fed was fed. And again, thank you, Scott, Tanya, everybody was wonderful working with me, helping me on some of the things I needed to, that I didn't understand. They got out flyers for me I created because I wanted to get the word out to as many people as possible that we were serving food, whether it was snowing, whether it was school was closed. I worked with buildings and grounds, just make me a path so we can get our van to the door and people can get to the door at Washington. That's what I did. That was my big goal, is I didn't want to miss a day, and we haven't. I think February, there might have been 1 or 2 because we just physically, Scott said to me, you guys are not leaving your house. Like, it was just too treacherous with the snow. But other than those couple of days, we really made sure we fed as much as we could, that people could get out. So that's kind of where we are today. As soon as the USDA said 7 days a week, including holidays, I told my staff, all right, here's what we have to do. If, we might have to feed meals for 5 days so you can have that, Memorial Day off, but this is what we have to do. We have to work harder so you can have a day off. And I have an excellent, excellent staff here. Everybody that works here is very dedicated to this community, to West Orange. I have many of them been here 20, 30 years working. So they are more than willing. Those are the ones that want to be here to help. Those are the ones from March 23rd have been with me the entire time. They're like, nope, we'll work the summer. We'll work this summer. They already know, again, in food service, you're used to not being here in the summer. They're used to being off July and August. So of course I have to say, please, I need people to work. I need help, and they're willing to do it. So, we do have a great staff here, and I thank everybody for your support also. Everybody's been wonderful. Everybody's been very understanding with everything we're doing. Things change on the drop of a dime, and we've kind of been trying to maneuver it as much as we can. So we're going to continue again to work with Nancy with the culinary program. And again, Lynn has been a tremendous help with the culinary program, with being a chef. She has the knowledge of everything that needed to happen to make that happen for Nancy. And, we're just going to continue. Again, our plan is to open up normal. Now, what guidelines are given to us right now? There aren't any. So we're kind of going with the guidelines that we will be able to serve the students behind glass, but those salad bars and things like that they were able to serve themselves, as of this point, we're thinking will be prepackaged. So they'll take a prepackaged, so they're not going to maybe be able to have that salad bar, but we'll make prepackaged salads for them to get. Our deli is all behind glass, so we still will be able to make deli sandwiches and things like that, and our hot food behind the glass. And, we've prepared the cafeterias with the, plexiglass between the cashier and the student and everything like that. So we're ready for whatever the USDA guidelines, CDC guidelines come down for us. We're ready to move on a dime. If we can take down that plexiglass, we'll take down the plexiglass to make it better for everybody. Because I think the students really need some interaction. That's part of the love of this, is to deal with the students and, hi, how are you today? Oh, don't forget your apple. Oh, wait, that's your favorite meal. Like that's what my staff does. That's what brings the students to come to eat, and that's what we want. So we're hoping that that's what's going to happen in September. That's our plan as of right now. So going forward, that's basically where we're going. So what for next year, and this was my plan as the food service manager, I really wanted to increase chef days. So some of our schools love to have chef days. And what that is we have a chef come in, and believe it or not, I did a couple myself, even though I'm not a chef, but the kids like to see display cooking. They want to see you toss in pasta and sauce. They want to be able to choose. Do they want meat sauce? Do they want penne alla vodka? Do they want, meatballs? So we would create a chef day where we would actually toss the pasta, cook it in little burners right in front of them. We plan on doing many more of them. That was my goal way back when, is to get more chef days. We have a new chef manager on staff, so that's why we'll have the ability now to really do more in the schools going forward. We have a lot of upgrades coming into the schools. We actually did well, serving all of these students throughout the summer, throughout the school, the hundreds of thousands of people that have come through, we get reimbursements for. So we have money to spend in our kitchens. Mount Pleasant, St. Cloud are getting whole new serving lines. There are some of the schools that are serving off of tables still. So they're getting whole new serving lines. We're getting upgraded equipment in the high school, a blast chiller, which is again something to help bring down the temperature of food quickly so it doesn't spoil, and again saves us time, saves us not losing food that needs to be cooled. We're getting a new kettle at the high school. So we've been working to get different pieces of equipment that we know are now breaking down, because we have the money to spend from these reimbursements to be able to upgrade our kitchens and have everything working the way it should be. And again, we're going to continue to work with Nancy. As I said, our staff has been trained with everything they need to know for COVID. They will continue to change masks, and we always wear gloves. We're trained in cross-contamination. We're trained in making sure we use the proper sanitizer on everything. Everything's sanitized when we come in the morning, everything's sanitized when we leave, plus what buildings and grounds come in and do with their sprayers. So we've covered all of that. You're going to close it up. Okay, so I'll turn it over to Jeff and this close up our presentation. Thank you.
So we have done some great things, and as Lori mentioned, one of the byproducts of the volume of meals we've served is we've realized that we have a healthy surplus in the Fund 60 account. And with the cooperation of Ms. Flowers, we've presented some options on how we can reinvest that back into your schools to make the schools more aesthetic for the students, more efficient, and more functional, so that we could offer a wider variety of items at all grade levels. You all know some of the especially elementary schools are aged, quite aged. And with that, the equipment has not really seen much renovation or change since the building's been built. I like to call some of those old lines old battleships. They're massive, they're a lot of steel, but they're not that functional. So now we have the opportunity and the means to upgrade and reinvest. That's what our plan is going forward, and we'll continue to do that in every school that needs it. We don't want to just wastefully spend that money, but let's spend it efficiently so we can get the best return on that. And at a macro level, some of the things that I've been looking at is just we're welcoming students and re-engaging them. It's almost like we've got to retrain them on how how the program works, and I don't want to assume that they're just going to come back and reestablish the same levels of participation. I prepare for the worst, where we may have a dip in participation out of caution. So at a macro level, we're looking at a lot of programs and communication methods to re-engage our students or customers or faculty, and reassure them of the quality and safety of the meals and the programs. Of course, we'll do that with full transparency with the administration, and that's what our presentation is for you today. At this time, I'd like to thank you again for the opportunity and the privilege to be here and serve the West Orange School District and all of your constituents. And I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Well, before I turn it over to President Trigg Scales, because our board might have a few questions. Got to give a shout out to Lori Craig. Listen, I spoke in broad brushstrokes about Mascios, of course, Jeff, but Lori's been a rock. And yes, we had a transition. Was that last year or this
Yeah, it
year?
was last fall.
I was going to say,
September.
so
And I don't want to say it was a planned transition.
Exactly.
We
But
were-
really, not only did we not miss a beat, but we didn't miss a beat amidst very, very challenging circumstances. And in addition to just being very effective at what she does, just a great person and very easy to work with, great team player. So thank you so much, Lori, on everything you've done. And with that, Ms. Trigg Scales, I would turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Cascone, and thank you for that great presentation, and I'll make some comments at the end. But what we'll do now is we'll go to each board member and see if they have comments on the presentation, and then we'll come back around for board reports. So as per usual, we will begin with Ms. Huerta.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mrs. President Terry Trigg Scales. Thank you to everybody here. I was firsthand witness to all of the hard work that was done to make sure that our students were able to, have meals provided throughout everything. That communication was definitely key to getting the information to the families and the parents that the food was available. So thank you very much for all the hard work that you all did and to the collaboration that it took. I just had one question. There is on the website, I believe, for the families who have food allergies. I think that was a concern that came up, maybe not as frequent, but I was wondering if that was updated or if that was finished being upgraded to the website?
Well, we never took that down. One of Macchio's, I think one of our differentiators is our commitment to food, working with parents with food allergies. We've got a team of dietitians that are second to none that will work with every parent individually based on their child's specific dietary needs for allergies and any kind of requirements. So that's been ongoing. So if a parent were to contact us through the website, they would a dietitian would reach out to them, speak to them, and we would design a menu just for that child, even though it may not have been what the standard weekly menu was for everyone else. We would work individually. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but we've never changed that policy. That policy is still in effect from even prior to the pandemic.
No, thank you very much. I think the question was more so like on the website for each individual item. I think some parents may not have been sure, but that was just a concern that.
Oh, okay. Well, that I'd have to check on that. But all of our menus are analyzed through a software, and our menu software, NutriSlice, does provide the nutrient analysis and ingredients for all the items we're serving. And that is updated monthly based on the menu change. Now, if there were substitutions, there sometimes is a delay before the new menu ingredients and nutritional information is posted. But I can look into that, and I can get back to Dr. Cascone if there was any delays over the past year on that.
Okay.
And by all means, if you're aware of anything specific, please send that
Perfect, no
information
problem.
to
Thank
us.
you very much. I don't have any further questions, but thank you for all the work.
You're welcome.
Mr. Bakelman, I might make it a suggestion as well. We have and I think you'll find this in a lot of districts, a pretty strong, allergy awareness advocacy group. It could be helpful if we were to produce a communication that was geared specifically and directly towards parents of children with life-threatening allergies, kind of as part of a summer mailer, right? Or just, the fact that the nutritionists are available to them for consultations, where they can access information about ingredients as it relates to the allergies. I think that proactive step would go a long way with those families.
I'd be happy to do that, Dr. Cascone.
Thank you.
All right. Were you finished, Ms.
Yeah.
Huerta? Yes.
Thank you
great.
very
Okay.
much.
Ms. Merklinger.
So thank you for all of that information. I can just say personally from working with Lori and Josh on some events within the community that they just do everything with so much love and attention to detail. So just thank you is really all I have to say for everything that you guys have done for the community. I don't think words express enough how much everyone just really appreciated all the hard work, especially during the pandemic. And so just, all we can say is thank you. And then separately, I don't know, are we asking questions about
We'll
other
come
items? Okay. But thank you.
You're
Thank
quite
you,
welcome.
Ms. Merklinger. Mr. Rothstein.
Yes. Really only one question, but before that, I wanted to thank you for providing the history that you just did. I know you by name over the last several years, but wasn't really aware of the history, and I really enjoyed hearing about it and appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, more important than that, it's from all the way over here with the fan going and it's 1,000 degrees. I can still sense the pride that you have in your organization and the pride that you feel in providing a service to school districts and to children and to the community. I just wanted to say thank you. I really do appreciate that. It comes across in the way you speak about the work that you do.
So nice to hear. Thank you.
The only question that I had isn't necessarily specifically related, but I've often wondered about and been concerned about the amount of food waste in schools. Kids are picky eaters. I know a lot of adults are too, but I would imagine that there must be studies that you have access to or look into that help you in deciding what to put on menus. And I was just curious to learn more about that. So not to put you on the spot for an answer right now, but if you have any information that you could share with us, maybe through Dr. Cascone or Mrs. Flowers, that would be appreciated. I'd certainly be interested to learn more.
You know what I'll do is I'll send a kind of a write-up to Dr. Cascone. You could share it with you, but in a short answer, we've got a lot of systems that have been developed over the years in our industry to minimize food waste. And we do that through a series of keeping track of our production levels, what our leftovers are, and adjusting that on a frequent basis. But we've also relied on student input. We will conduct focus groups, and one of the things planned for next year, it was planned last year, which is because of the circumstances, our surveys, our student surveys, where we want to get their feedback. I'm doing some work with some very different menus from what's traditionally done, recognizing the diversity in our communities and trying to specifically find food that is very familiar to people, to our students, that may not traditionally be offered. And with that, we've relied on a lot of student input and focus groups. So between all of those things, that's how we develop our menus. And we don't put an item on that we know isn't popular just to fill a menu spot. We do look at this as a business as well, and we don't want to have what we call dogs on the menu. If it doesn't sell one day, we're not going to just try to make it work. We're going to find out why and dump it and replace it with something that will be acceptable to students.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Vice President Tunnicliffe.
Thank you, President Chick-Scales. Thank you all for your presentation. And thank you for your partnership, more importantly, over this last really difficult year in ensuring that our students and families have been fed throughout the COVID crisis. I did have a couple questions, and I wanted to, my first one is really about the ACF pre-apprenticeship program, and I'm wondering what skill set that our students come away with once they've completed this program. Are they ready to go out into the workforce and do culinary skills? Do they have serve safe? So I wanted to, if you could elaborate a little bit on that.
I could tell you briefly. Now, I don't want to steal Nancy's thunder, so I won't overshare. But it is a new program, so I can't say that we've graduated a student through it. But what we designed the program to do was to offer students who may not have actually worked in the industry prior, but had interest in it. So we didn't want to make it too overwhelming, but we still wanted to give them I always felt that, giving a student a good impression of what to expect could encourage them to get into the industry. So we focused on a lot of knife skill training, the cutting techniques. We started with some different cooking techniques. We did offer a serve safe program for students, which is a health and sanitation food handling course that is required if you're going to work in the industry at a chef capacity or in a managerial capacity. That is a 6 or 8 hour course. That's an instructional course followed by a test. So it's a wonderful program, and we offered that. We administered that with Nancy, and we never got to actually do the apprenticeship program because of COVID. But we were all set to bring students on over the summer and work in some of the camps that we serve, and some of our school districts where we're having a summer program. And certainly they'd be paid for it. They'd be employees of ours, but they'd be also under the guidance of our managers. Now, we did talk about in West Orange this summer, bringing some students in to work with Lori and her team, and not just to pack lunches. That would be part of it. But Lori would also, and Lynn would also spend some time with those students, walking them through some of our, you mentioned before, how do we determine how much we need? So part of that is ordering, is inventory controls, and ordering product for the menus in days in advance so that we have it on hand to prepare. So we were going to work with them on all of those components just to try and catch up and get some engagement with the students. But I honestly, I can't tell you specifically what you're asking me because I don't know yet. But Nancy would probably be better to ask for that question. I could just tell you that we're excited about that program. I am. My chefs all are, and we want to continue it as long as possible. Now that grant, Nancy got the extension for one more year, but it's the last year. So now that what we want to do, the mission is, so how do we continue this program without the grant, and what can we do as a good partner to the district to keep this program going in some capacity? Don't have an answer yet, but we will.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Tunnicliff, if you like, I can, I can gather some additional information on that for you and the board in terms of some specifics about the grant, if you were interested.
That would be great, thank you. And one other question, when you took the contract over in 2019, did you at that time upgrade the point of sale system?
Yes.
And so it's being done again?
Actually, it was last year. The previous point of sale system, and for anybody who may not know what that is, it's well, I guess in layman's terms, it's kind of like cash register, but it also tracks the students who purchase a meal and by their eligibility. As you know, some students are eligible to receive free reduced price lunch, so that has to be monitored and tracked appropriately by their eligibility so that the district receives the reimbursements it's eligible to receive. Anyway, the past system we had was, I guess it was outdated, and it started to become a nuisance and riddled with maintenance issues and problems. So while Josh was here before he left, I tasked him with working with your IT department to interview a variety of different companies. One was selected. There wasn't an RFP process that was conducted, and then the new one was selected and brought in. Josh got it going. Lori has since picked up the mantle on that and has become familiarized with it. So we haven't tested it officially yet, but we're looking forward to that next year. And just on another note, just so you know, we are right now, next year, all meals will be still eligible for free. All students will be eligible for a free meal as long as the USDA continues to extend what's called an SSO program, a seamless summer program option, designed for school districts that opted into it, regardless of your level of free and reduced students. So we have signed up for that for the next school year, and if it continues through the year, all students will receive meals for free.
Thank you. And one last question. For the USDA seamless summer operation, can you talk a little bit about the logistics for that and if it's going to look like what we've been doing so that maybe parents can understand what they could expect for this summer?
Well, for the summer, it's certainly going to continue, and we'll be serving at how many sites, Lori? Why don't you take this?
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay, so starting July 5th, and again, there will be communication going out. I will create another flyer for the team to put out. What I've decided is, even though school's ending on the 22nd, we're going to continue the 7 elementary locations until July 1st. So, or July 2nd, I'm sorry, whatever that Friday is, that last week in June, that goes into July 2nd, I guess, because the 4th is a Sunday. So Monday, July 5th, we're going to go back to what we did last summer in the 3 elementaries, which will be Washington, Hazel, 2 elementaries, and the West Orange High School. Instead of using buses being available, obviously we know is an issue. we're going to serve from inside the building, right inside the door, like we're doing now. So Washington will be the same location, Hazel will be the same location, and the high school, West Orange High School, will be right in the Tarnoff CAF. We do have Mashio grab and go signs. We'll make sure they're available. And I actually this summer wanted to go one step further because I don't feel like enough people, even though we send out so much communication, don't really know. So I was going to actually have Mashios make some actual flyers that I can put up throughout town to say, you know, we're here, we're serving, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 to 2 at these 3 locations to try and get as many people out to continue to eat as possible.
That sounds great. I would also say if you can put some of the flyers in Spanish and possibly Creole, that would
We
really help
always
some of
do.
our families. That'd be great.
We always do all
Terrific.
3, so we will do that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Vice President Tunnicliffe. I just have to echo, you know, what my fellow board members and Dr. Cascone have already said. To have pivoted the way you did was phenomenal. And you did it with such efficiency and such excellence. And as Mr. Rothstein said, we can feel your passion for what you do. And we are the beneficiaries, our students, our community, and we thank you. So I have a question. Tell me how you set up student advisory boards or parent advisory boards. How do you get feedback from your stakeholders?
Well, during the school year, we'll coordinate with, every school has one. So we'll coordinate with the school principal and ask for his input on who he would like involved in that. There's usually a school administrator, a participant there. Occasionally Tanya, or I know John used to sit in on some of the meetings as well. Those meetings are all documented. It's also a requirement for USDA for us to have these meetings and keep that documentation annually. But we've also gone a step further and created some online surveys for both students and parents to get feedback, which help measure everything from value, speed of service, employee friendliness, and the overall satisfaction of the students' dining experience. And we get both a parent's perspective and a student's perspective of that, so we can make adaptations to our menu to, you know, continually improve. Again, our goal is to increase the amount of students that are eating lunch and breakfast in school, and not just for monetary reasons, because it helps in your mission to for student advancement and education. We want to give them a healthy, nutritious meal, keeps them fueled up for better learning.
Great. And I did hear, I thought I heard Dr. Cascone, the acoustics are very bad. I apologize. The fans are really kind of distorting. What did you say, Dr. Cascone, about the allergy parents and communicating with them?
Yeah.
I missed that.
Right. No, I just made the suggestion that, you know, because there are a lot of great services available to parents of students with life-threatening allergies, if Mashios would put together a specific communication geared directly towards those parents, clarifying for them, explaining for them what resources and supports they had. And that's something that we could include in our summer mailer out to parents.
Great.
And Mr. Bakerman said that he would do
It's
that.
something that we can accommodate
Right.
very easily.
So,
Yeah, because it would be wonderful for you to get the feedback from them, because they're dealing with students with special needs.
Right.
And so I'm happy to hear that you have the advisory set up and that parents participate and students as well. So again, I thank you on behalf of the board for all that you've done for us and all that you will continue to do over the summer. And we're happy that you're part of the West Orange family.
We're grateful for that opportunity.
Thank you.
That's it. There are no more questions. Thank you so much for all of your time. Appreciate it.
thank you, folks. We appreciate you.
Have a great night.
Thank you. right, so now we'll swing back around for board reports. Ms. Huerta?
Thank you, President Chick Scales. We did have a lot, the summer is coming back, and so I think people are,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Ms. Huerta, if you'll pardon me, Mr. Scales. We actually have questions. The questions portion of the meeting precedes board reports. No? Is that right?
Right, on the agenda before board reports, we have questions from the public on agenda items.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Questions from the public on agenda items precedes board reports. No?
No.
Yes.
Item 8 is superintendent and board reports.
My
So
apologies.
we'll take questions from the public.
Stand
after the
corrected.
board
My
reports.
apologies.
We're good?
We are good.
Okay,
My apologies.
thank you. Ms. Huerta?
okay, so I'm
Sorry, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry, no problem. Memorial Day was my first service. It was a really great, beautiful service. I had to hold back tears, and it was really great that we were able to do it in person this year and in front of the town hall. We do have many activities coming up. Juneteenth is one of the bigger ones. There's many events going on Juneteenth. The West Orange, what is it? West Orange, I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue tied a little bit. West Orange Arts Council, our students do have a reception at the art gallery. There's a whole list of events, the West Orange Public Library. There will be a flag raising in front of Town Hall, and there will be food trucks at Colgate Park. And so I'm looking forward to the food. Okay, and so, okay, sorry. We do also have a Mountaineer Auto Club fundraiser coming up June 26th, August 28th for oil changes. That I always miss it, so I hope I get to make it to this time. And other than that, I don't really have much else to report on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, it's much quieter, but it's going to be much hotter in a minute. Okay, Ms. Merklinger.
Thank you. So I think just from a PR committee, we have the town hall meeting coming up on the 16th. And we do have the policy meeting workshop this Thursday. But the town hall on district goals, that is next week on Wednesday. Again, that's I think 7 o'clock. But we definitely want the community involvement in that. So there should be more communications coming out, but just from the PR committee, that's the one very big item right now. From the policy committee, I'll let Gary speak to it a little bit more, but we are having a workshop this week. And we are on track to meet our goals of having the Strauss estimate policies all adopted before the next school year. I did have one follow-up question for Dr. Cascone in terms of the reopening plan. And this might be just because there's a lot of discussion and not I want to say misinformation, but it's unclear as to what the actual guidelines or communications have been from the Department of Education and the governor. But it sounds like the governor is saying that all schools, all districts are going back to school on site. No mention of social distancing. The only thing has been masks lately. And with that, even that's coming up for discussion with right now, even with the heat that being put out to principals of schools. I think some of our neighboring schools actually had students pass out today from wearing masks in school and with the heat and not having air conditioning or fans or things of that nature. But where I'm going with this is it sounds like there are no guidelines for the upcoming school year, but it sounds like we're planning that there are guidelines. And I know there's kind of some, disconnection about guidelines versus from the governor versus guidelines from the Department of Education. So if you could just maybe give a little clarity, because I know members of the community are going to probably question, why are we planning for guidelines if there are no guidelines from the governor?
So maybe we can just speak a little bit more to where we're looking for direction to come from in our planning.
Sure. If there, first, I would just speak to the statement that there were students that passed out. I'm not sure where you obtained that information, Mrs. Merklinger, but I received no such reports from any building principals or any school nurses that occurred. That being said, fortunately we are remote tomorrow due to the primary election. So I do have specifically that notification which Governor Murphy put out on his Twitter feed today on the agenda for building principals tomorrow, so that we can kind of knock that around and understand where they're coming from on it, where their staff may be coming from on it, and also to just get an assessment as to what was the situation on the ground today in the buildings. I was in communication with a number of principals, and thankfully the students are out of the building relatively early, so we avoided the greatest heat. That being said, we understand we have a couple weeks of school left, so we do have to have a pivot plan and a transitional plan in the event that schools just simply are not safe to open. As far as we are, if there are no guidelines, then we're in, right? I mean, if there are no guidelines, then we're opening our schools like we do every year. No guidelines means school as it always has been. It means 50 kids on a school bus. It means 28 kids in a classroom sometimes. It means no thermal screenings, no masks, no vaccinations, no social distance. And if that is in fact the case, then we operate business as usual. And that is in fact presently. And so when people say, well, what's your plan? So like, well, if the guidelines there are no guidelines, then our plan is we open our schools like we have every year. And that's where we are right now. What I fear most, and every superintendent in the state has the same fear, is that at some point in time, they're going to put down certain guidelines, and then all of a sudden we're going to be scrambling to create a plan along these guidelines. So that's kind of where we are. I've stated that many times in the public. I don't know how much more clearly I can state that in the absence of guidelines, we open as we always have, and we are waiting to see if any guidelines are put in place. And as I've stated a number of occasions, we are doing what we can to plan for full occupancy. So namely ensuring that we have as many spaces as possible that are retrofitted and that have the proper mechanical ventilation so that we can utilize them, expecting that our buildings are going to be fully occupied. So that's that would be my the clarity I would provide on that relative to those questions.
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
No
I think
problem.
that helps
Oh, I'm sorry. I
clarify.
didn't mean to. I should have turned the mic back to you. The floor. I turned the microphone back to you, Ms. Burke.
No,
You're very
I
welcome.
think that was helpful. I think that clarifies for
My
a lot
pleasure.
of folks that were confused with what the guidance was versus guidelines and whatnot. So thank you.
Ms. Merklinger, we have this hypothesis that actually they're waiting to see what we submit in our safe return plans for good ideas, which then will help inform the guidelines they ultimately give to us. It's just a theory.
Thank you. That was
Okay, thank you, Ms. Merklinger. And Mr. Rothstein?
Really, actually nothing to add to the report. Looking forward to our policy meeting on Thursday and to our town hall the following week.
Great, thank you. Vice President Tunnicliffe?
Thank you, President Trickscales. Like some of my colleagues, I had the opportunity to attend the Memorial Day ceremony down at Town Hall, and it was really a beautiful ceremony and so well done. And we had our junior AFJROTC group did an amazing job. They were really well represented, and I didn't realize how much they did in that ceremony. It was really nice to see our students out there and remembering those who died in service to our country. So it was a really touching ceremony. So I was glad to be for that. I don't really have a legislative report today, but hopefully I'll have one on the 21st or possibly the 16th if we're doing board reports. So thank you.
Ms. Tunnicliff?
Nope.
Yes.
Oh.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay, Ms. Elliston, you have a comment?
Yes. So this was Ms. Huerta's topic, and I just wanted to add on to it. So as we all know, last year, the West Orange Youth Caucus hosted the first ever Juneteenth celebration, and we will be hosting another one at a different park this time because the town has booked ours. We will be hosting another one, and if you want some more information on it, we will be posting it within the next week. It's on Instagram at Whoa Youth Caucus. And we'd love to see everybody there. That's it.
Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you. Okay. I have several things, but I'm going to wait and do it at the end of the meeting, just in the interest of our public who's here, if they have comments on agenda items. Don't all rush up to the mic at once. Okay, all right. We have, is that Mr. Viney? All right. Welcome. You are our very first public comment in public in 15 months.
Oh, wow. Thank you. And it's good to see everyone. And good evening. I'm Elmani Vani, 186 Forest Hill Road, West Orange, of course. Regarding agenda items, especially with the school opening, I think I've spoken about this before. As you know, I myself am a school administrator in another district. And I know it's something I'd like to bring up as well later on at the town hall meeting. I would really like I cannot emphasize enough that to make sure that our district really engages with the American Pediatrics Association and American Psychological Association as it pertains to the social, emotional, and psychological welfare of children. Similar to my district and this district, though we've had students come back, my son and daughter are back in, which is great. We do know that we have had children that have still not come back into school, that have remained virtual. We do not know, unfortunately, what has transpired in households due to isolationism and all of the other statistics that we have seen range when it comes to impact on children at home. That means, I don't want to sound like a downer, but I want to be a realist. We do not know what forms of PTSD is coming back into our schools in the beginning of the school year. Because I serve in a disciplinary role, my biggest concern is that behaviors that come from traumatic events that have happened in the household, one, that proper services are not given, right? So make sure that proper service is given. But what's very important is to make sure that we don't see school discipline go off the hinges. It is very, and it has happened historically in education, to whereas traumatic events are translated as behavioral issues of students. And so whereas an outburst in a classroom, we relegate as a teacher writing that up, when in truth, that outburst is relegated to something that may have happened in that child's background. And so we want to make sure that what I don't want to see happen in this district, because I love this district, is a spiraling where children are suspended, detention, when in truth they needed therapy or support. Dr. Cascon, I think the great thing that you did, and I think the great thing that the district did, especially during time of COVID, is bring in physicians and others that know the science. I would strongly recommend, as part of any reopening team, that once again, you have psychologists or pediatricians to say, hey, here are some of the things, because I know I'm about to run out of time, but just in final comment is, I think the worst thing we can do, and I've said this to even my own district, is, and I know it's not going to happen on day one, but is we give these children that are in trauma, we just say, hey, a field day, or we're like, okay, welcome back to school. Now open up to page 125. And when we don't know what we're dealing with in those layers, I know we're not psychologists. I know we're not psychologists. I understand all that. but I think we can really set a great tone in having the proper supports and interventions for children that may have suffered, and doing it long-term, and also offering that PD long-term to our teachers and administrators in security. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Castone, is there anything you want to add in response to Mr. Viney? I know that we've taken several steps in that regard.
Yes. Thank you, President Trigg-Scales. Thank you, Mr. Viney. And of course, we recollect, Mr. Viney's and appreciated his participation and his commentary at an earlier meeting, which he's echoed here tonight. And as I did on that evening, I will again, strongly agree with the perspective that Mr. Viney's brought forth. And certainly as a fellow educational leader himself, he brings, that practical experience in working with kids in the secondary setting. So you'll note, Mr. Viney and others, in the return plan, that'll be forthcoming. I just saw in my email that it's ready to go. We'll see if our comms team can get it out tonight. Is that we are allocating a significant amount of the grant to mental health and SEL while we're still working out the fine brushstrokes of that agreement. We are engaged in conversations with Rutgers University Behavioral Health to bring in additional full-time clinicians that will work not only in individual therapy, group therapy, risk assessment, and parent outreach. We are exploring engaging in a partnership with Effective School Solutions, which you may be familiar with, Mr. Viney, establishes basically a therapeutic setting within the school. This is a program that we've been looking at for some time. And since we have 2 years to spend this grant, it would enable us for the first 2 years to fund it out of the grant. This would represent not only an opportunity as a step down program for students who might be currently out of district to get them back into district, but also for students who might be in the regular ed setting, as a step up environment prior to going out of district or being classified. So that would be another great resource from the standpoint of professional development. We definitely recognize that we need to be providing professional learning relative to social emotional learning, trauma-based instruction, and things of that nature. I'm really glad you mentioned restorative discipline. And coincidentally, we just received a broadcast from the state soliciting interest in participating in a restorative justice pilot. Now, you should know that all of our secondary schools and a couple of our elementary schools have sort of been starting to foray into that and dabble with it. But admittedly, we have not established really a cogent strategy to really bringing that to bear in our schools. I do have a middle school that's interested. It would just be one district school in the district. But I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that is a worthwhile and relevant goal to put on the docket as far as and obviously not only in terms of what happens within the assistant principal's office, the principal's office, but we know that it starts with teacher mindset and how we're structuring our classroom. So I really appreciate that comment. I've made note of that to continue to emphasize that. I really like the idea of, as we did the medical professionals town hall, doing like a town hall late summer, early school year with mental health professionals, social workers, psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, right? To say, have some guided questions about, what are the kinds of things we expect as a PD mechanism as well for our teachers. So teachers can say, what are the kinds of things we might see? How is it going to impact? Brilliant stuff. And finally, you may not be aware of the fact that the state, actually, I'm sure you are, in fact, as a high school assistant principal, is the Handle with Care program, where now local school districts have, there's legislation where there's a partnership with local law enforcement, whereby if there's if a child observes a traumatic event in the household, could be domestic violence, could be a drug overdose, something of that nature, we get notified, not in specifics, but just that, with a handle with care advisory, which just simply puts that child front and center, both in the classroom and really lets us know that we need to be even more aware of that child and perhaps offer them support. So, but absolutely. And you know what, Mr. Viney, is as long as you want to keep coming to board meetings between now and the opening of school and keep banging the gong on that message, we're happy to have you because it's important that we keep that front and center. So I appreciate that. And Ms. Trigg-Scales, President Trigg-Scales, we do have.
I was just about to go there. Okay. And so Mrs. Flowers, would you share with us our three, were they on agenda items or off agenda items?
I have one from a community member on agenda
Okay.
items.
So if you would share that with us, please.
Okay. This particular question and comment came from Ms. Rebecca Butel, 1 Carlson Road. And her question and comment, in a year of such inconsistency and unrest, why would there be involuntary transfers of staff members that do not want to change schools? Following the past school year, unnecessary staff changes could have a very negative impact on the climate and culture of the schools.
Thank you for that question. So just to provide some context, if you haven't perused the agenda, this is an agenda on which there are a number of transfers, some of them voluntary, some of them involuntary. This is a process that we try and be as inclusive as possible in this process in our conversations. That does not necessarily mean that in every case, we will, as an organization, be able to accommodate the request or the preference of a staff member, although that is always the primary goal. Yes, there's no doubt that that change is not necessarily ideal at this time, but in an organization of 1,300 employees and with a lot of moving parts, right? I mean, we're getting daily retirements, resignations for a variety of different reasons. And there's a lot of moving parts in a lot of different schools. And what I like to try and tell folks is, look, your organization needs you, right? Kind of whether on any team, listen, I know you used to, I find myself making sports analogies. I don't know what that says about me, Ms. Tunnicliffe, but I use a lot of sports. As a coach, you might say, you know what? Hey, but coach, I've always played left wing. So, you know what? I understand and we appreciate what you've done there, but we need you in the center of the pitch. We need you to be a presence in the center of the pitch, and we appreciate it. And we're obviously going to support you in that move, and we really appreciate that, right? And so an organization is the same thing. So our message to employees is like, this is not a criticism. This is not punitive, but this is just we need to move you into the slot, and we'll provide whatever support we need. You'll notice that in an organization of our size, the number of transfers on the agenda, certainly relatively speaking, few. So we did make every effort to try and minimize and mitigate those changes, but in some cases, it was simply the way the thing shook out. That is all I have, President Trigg-Scales.
All right, thank you. And I just wanted to mention to Mr. Viney, one of the most beneficial workshops I've ever attended was on trauma and the effect of trauma on students. And this was certainly pre-pandemic. And it is something that I think all teachers need to experience because a lot of the discipline that we see or the negative behavior has a root. Something has caused that. And with the restorative justice and the restorative discipline, that's what that's about. It's getting at the root of the problem, not just dealing with the symptom, but what's causing it. And so, I agree 100% that our primary responsibility when our students come back to us in September is to assess where they are, not just academically, but emotionally. That's really, really important for us, and that will definitely be a priority.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, Ms. Tunnicliffe.
The other thing, when we talk about trauma, that it often comes through in physical symptoms. So it's also something that our nursing staff will need to be aware of if they're seeing kids over and over again who they might not have seen before. rooted in Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's work, and great book if anyone has the time to read it. It's called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's the way your body hangs on to the trauma until you really deal with it. It's a wonderful book and I highly recommend it, but it was also something that's pertinent to the discussion. So thank you for letting me.
Oh,
add
sure,
that.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we are up to item 10, reports, discussions, and recommendations. And I am looking at item A, personnel. Items A, 1 through 5. May I have a motion? Oh, before we do that, we do have 2 retirements that I'd like to acknowledge. Yoon Abernathy, West Orange High School Chinese, is retiring after 13 years. And Miss Patricia Quinn at Kelly, grade 5, special ed, retiring after 18 years. Congratulations. And as a retiree, I always like to say, welcome to the club where every day is Saturday. And so let's see, do I have a motion for personnel?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Tunnicliffe. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Any discussion?
I just had one question.
Melinda.
Is that who was first?
Melinda. Oh,
Okay, Ms. Huerta.
oh, sorry. So in number 5, let me see. Yeah, number 5, item number 5, superintendent recommends approval for Board of Education for the following negotiated co-curricular assignments. And I noticed that they are for yearbook advisory for Liberty and Roosevelt. Those are the 2 middle schools.
This is for Naviance. I didn't hear you, Ms. Huerta. Can you repeat the question?
So my question would be, do we normally cover yearbook advisors for only the middle schools? Is there a special request that a school has to make for just consistency purposes?
Are you referring to a one particular position in particular?
Item 5, number 5.
Page 5.
Not a particular position,
The
just in
yearbook
general.
advisor position?
Yes.
Okay. So the reason this is appearing is these motions appeared previously. These motions have been amended in terms of the stipend. The original occasion that these appeared on the agenda, they appeared as prorated stipends because these advisors took on the position later in the year. After some follow-up conversation, it was learned that the stipend is really dispersed for completion of the project of the yearbook itself. And so provided that product is produced, if you will, then the staff member should be entitled to the full stipend, not prorated by virtue of the month. So that's the reason this appears again. It's actually the second time it's appearing just as an amended contract. But if the question was, are you asking why there isn't one for Edison School or no?
Right, it's only 2 schools. I'm not sure if there was, is this customary for all schools or just the middle schools, the high school?
Well, the only schools that actually that I know definitively have yearbooks are, of course, the high school, which does have a stipend for yearbook, the 2 middle schools. Dr. Vespignani's in the audience. Edison, do they have a yearbook?
Earlier.
Prior to that, okay. So our 3 middle schools and our high school all have paid stipends for yearbook. I don't think we have a consistent approach to an annual at the elementary schools.
It's usually done by the PTAs.
Done by the PTAs. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Ms. Merkley?
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of the prior question about transfers, just for the community, if Dr. Cascone, if you could just clarify what voluntary versus involuntary means. I think sometimes it's misleading about what it actually means.
Sure. So earlier in the year, this should I probably go back, what, maybe 2 months, Dr. Vespignani, when you put out the solicitation. Dr. Vespignani, could I ask you to come to the microphone and just share your process relative to solicitation of interest in transfers, et cetera? That sort of explains well, really both sides, but in particular, the voluntary side. Thank you, Dr. Vespignani.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Cascone. Yes, back in March, I disseminated a transfer request sheet to all staff members who then, if they are seeking a request to be transferred either to a new position or to a location, they are placing HR on notice, not a commitment, but for advisement under consideration. So in some cases, staff members did submit, in which case that could be deemed voluntary. In other cases, based upon, it could be a multitude of reasons. It could be due to resignation, retirement, as Dr. Cascone had indicated earlier, enrollment, and also, administrators collaborating in terms of needs, therefore making requests to human resources to ultimately transfer a staff member, which would then be deemed involuntary. In that regard, the administrators had first placed me on notice. We engaged in conversation, one from a compliance perspective to ensure that from a certification standpoint, we could make such transfers, but also just to ensure that the process was implemented with fidelity, that staff members were given ample notice within mid-May, because naturally some of these transfers, there's some emotions attached and also physical component in moving not only a classroom, but also maybe a physical location. So, the process was implemented, back in March with all district employees, and more recently as, kind of things triangulate with retirements, resignations, any non-renewals, enrollment numbers, we get a better sense as in regard to the staffing needs of the district as a whole and building to building.
Thank you, Dr. Vespignani.
My pleasure. Thank you.
While you're at the podium, any follow-ups for Dr. B?
Yeah, if you don't mind, can you just speak a little bit to the process for a staff member that maybe is not comfortable with the change or did not ask for, so it sounds like if they requested it, it's voluntary, didn't request it, it's involuntary. Can you speak a little bit to what the process is and what the faculty, what guidance they're provided and resources are provided in terms of next steps and how that works?
Thanks for that question. So in my messaging to the administrators across the district, first, it should be an inclusive process where, staff members are placed on notice again early, so that then, they have time to essentially prepare. In regard to, thereafter, after the staff member is placed on notice, administrators would submit a form to human resources indicating the date that the staff member was notified. Therefore, either one, a staff member may wish to reach out to me directly, or two, I'm involved and I have a sense of as to what the transfer was in regard to, so I can support that staff member with any questions or concerns that we have. We have had some staff members reach out, in which case, I've provided some context and some additional phone calls and attempt to support that staff member with the transition.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Vespignani.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on personnel? There being none, Mrs. Flowers?
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Vice President Tunnicliff,
Yes.
President Trix Scales.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. And now B, curriculum and instruction, items 1 through 4. May I have a motion, please?
Yes, moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. A second, please.
I'll second.
Was that Ms. Huerta? Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Oh, you're down there alone now? Oh, okay, thank you. Any discussion on curriculum and instruction?
Yes. Just, in reading a little bit about the various programs, I was actually really impressed with a lot of what we're going to be offering here. And so I was just hoping if we could get a brief explanation of the National Writing Project and what that program is going to afford to our schools.
Sure. Thank you for that question, Mr. Rothstein. So the Writing Center at Drew is an organization, an institute, if you will, that kind of spun off of the Rutgers Writing Project. And the driver of that departure was rooted primarily in the fact that the program at Rutgers is very elementary driven. And it was really this kind of mission to, bring a similar level of kind of focus and attention and, kind of methodological, professional development as it relates to secondary writing, right? And with the idea that, just like sometimes we get this idea, oh, well, they're in 6th grade now, they know how to read. And they're developed readers, right? And so we have a tendency to kind of abandon all of those kind of literacy strategies that we were very deliberate about using in elementary school. And so it's along those lines that we still need to give attention to nurturing and developing writers in middle school and high school in the same way we were doing in elementary school. And so, one of the things that they do in the onset of this program is that that teachers write, like they put the teacher as writer. They put the teacher through that process of kind of doing their own writing and reflecting on their own writing, to really go through that process that they're ultimately going to model for students. And that is in fact really one of the key components of the methodology moving forward, is always that the teacher is modeling. So if you're going to ask a student to write a journal article, a journal entry, you're doing one yourself as the teacher and kind of modeling for them what well-developed journal writing skills look like. So that's just some snippets. Just coincidentally, it's just a kind of an interesting side note, is that the director of the Drew project the director of the Writing Project at Drew, Dr. Kristen Turner, was an English teacher at Morris Hills Regional High School when I was an assistant principal there. Now, of course, that has nothing to do with why we brought them on board, but it's just funny how 6 degrees of separation in the field. And that is my response, Mr. Rothstein.
Well, Dr. Cascon, could you tell us about number 4, the chesskid.com grant?
Questions on that too.
Sure. So this
That's
is
a generous grant.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is this is really, I think, a great example of what happens when the parent community connects with the school community. So this is an opportunity that was kind of presented to, I think it originally, So I think it actually was originally shared with Miss Berg. Miss Berg, I think, shared it with me, and I said, you know what, let's take a deeper dive into this. This looks interesting. And she did, and to her credit, and I'd like to thank Miss Berg really, because she's the one that kind of ran with the ball on this and ultimately submitted the application, and had the application, the grant be awarded. So we're kind of still working through. There's some tech pieces here because it's a digital, offering. But really it's an opportunity to really orient and expose all students to the game of chess, not only in of itself because of the game and really the doors that chess can open, right? And we also know that it tends to be a male-dominated sport, so really exposing more female, more girls to that, to the game, but also just all the critical thinking and the logic that comes with being a chess player. So it's something that we would foresee really incorporating as part of the elementary curriculum. Admittedly, we're still working through the fine brushstrokes of exactly where we would work it in and how we would work it in. And the value of it is just really the value of the software for the number of licenses that we've been provided by the company.
And how many, do you know off the top?
For every elementary student.
Wow.
Every elementary student.
That's phenomenal. That's great. Any other discussion?
I did, if I can, if you don't mind, if I just had a couple other questions on this. So I know you've got some logistics to work out, so that was one of my questions about how is it going to be used, but what PD are teachers going to receive for this? And the other question is, so what happens to this after the first year? If it's successful and people like it, then we pay the 150 or it goes away or?
So the first question, I had it and then I lost it. The
PD.
Yeah, and just taking a quick step back. So this program and software would live on Clever along with our other digital products and solutions. There would be, we would work PD in for teachers, so that they were able to, orient their students to how to use it and how to play it. My understanding is that, and there's a math program that uses this model, which is basically, their model is that they offer the sort of like the basic version of it to the school district.
Mhm.
And then parents can opt, if they wish, to to pay additional. It's almost kind of like an app. We have free access to the app. Parents then have the option of purchasing additional features.
Mhm.
There's an upside for the company and an upside for us. Mhm.
Okay,
So
thanks.
it's sustainable,
All right.
right?
All right. Any other discussion? That's it?
Yeah, may I just make
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Just one thing I wanted to acknowledge, Jennifer's question was, typical of a chess player, you're thinking a step ahead to how we're going to pay for this next year. So well done. Making a little bit of a joke there, but actually I was so happy to see this on the item, on the agenda, watching the TV series, The Queen's Gambit, really, sparked a love of chess again that had gone dormant for a long time because I was such a terrible player. I just set it aside in my life. But it is one of those things that just the benefits play out across so many aspects of whatever we're involved in. So I'm happy to see it, and I'm happy to see it for our elementary school students especially. And then one other quick comment just on item number 3 regarding the consulting author event and the professional development for teachers. One of the notes in the write-up was that it will help teachers confer with students about their writing. And just that really jumped out at me because in my former days in the classroom, I know that I felt that I could teach, I could write, but I had a very hard time talking with students about their writing. It's a different skill set, and it's a very important one. And so that line in the description really jumped out at me and made me feel appreciative that we've got this program incorporated as well. That was it. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, Mrs. Flowers, we're ready for a vote on curriculum and instruction. Please.
Okay, Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Vice President Tunnicliff,
Yes.
President Trigg Scales.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that moves us to C, finance. May I get a motion for finance items A and B?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on finance?
I do have a few questions.
Ms.
Just a
Merklinger?
clarification. On under 5 and under 7, Learn Well, one has a rate of 57.
Your mic.
Oh, sorry.
What page are you on?
On page 12 of the agenda and page 13.
Okay.
Number 5 and number 7, Learn Well. The rate is $57 per hour on under 5, but then it says $55 per hour under 7. And then it says previously approved for 30,000. I'm just wondering, so one, which is the right correct rate, and two, what was the increase?
Ms. Merklinger, can you just repeat that question? I didn't hear the first part of it.
Sure. On page 12, number 5, it says, for the provider of home instruction, Learn Well. The rate is $57 per hour, not to exceed 30,000. And that's under 5, but then under 7, it says provider of home instruction of students for West Orange Public Schools, Learn Well, $55 per hour, not to exceed 50,000. And then it has an asterisk that says previously approved for 30,000. So I just want to get clarity around
Yeah, I see
if that's the same or if it, what the correct rate should be. And then if it is supposed to be not to exceed 50,000, what was the change?
Okay, so the difference in, if I may, and if I'm wrong, yeah, so I believe the difference is that the rate on page 12 is for the 21-22 school year, which would explain it's a rate increase from 50 from 55 and the motion on page 13 is for the 2021 school year, which would explain the difference in rate. The rate has gone up by $2 ostensibly for 21-22. Now, in terms of the reason why, and the reason why it's 50 is that's the original motion was for $30,000, so it's approving the increase in the allowable expenditures with this vendor to $50,000.
So if I'm understanding, so for the 2021 school year, which is what we're in, it's $55 an hour, not to exceed 50,000. And for the upcoming school year, it's increasing to $57 per hour, not to exceed 30,000.
Right. So the motion for 2021 that you see on page 13 is a motion that's approving a revised total expenditure for this vendor, Learn Well. It had previously appeared on an agenda at $55 an hour for $30,000.
Okay.
As it says, previously approved for $30,000, and the board is being asked to approve an increase in expenditure to $20,000. And I do believe that might have been noted in Ms. Gogarty Fitzgerald's notes. Say again?
This agenda item is to approve an increased amount designated for Learn Well. It was in the board notes as well.
Right. And 7 is to approve an increase designated for provides instructions. That's just an increase in the amount. So that explains the difference in rates and the difference in the amounts. Now, it's a fair question is, does it make sense to approve more than $30,000? But this is the motion which has been moved forward by Ms. Gogarty Fitzgerald. So
Do we have any clarity on what I mean, are we serving more students? Is that why the increase, there's a $20,000 increase? Did she?
that's a good question. I'm seeing if it's reflected in the notes. I noted that it's that Ms. Gogarty Fitzgerald did not provide an explanation in her notes as to what was leading to the increase in expenditure. I'm happy, to, if the board wishes to table the item until we get further information. It's a fair question.
How will tabling it affect our students?
It's hard to say. I think that, where is this in the pipeline? Is it, right? Is it something that is scheduled to be services that are scheduled to be delivered next week? Or, right. So, I can't answer that question definitively.
Are we scheduled to take any action on Thursday? I'm just wondering if maybe we could table it tonight and then if we could get the follow-up response and then take action at Thursday's policy meeting or workshop. I don't know if we're scheduled to take action for Thursday. I don't remember. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Right, so if it's the will of the board to table the item and we could add it for action on at the policy meeting on Thursday, it's not a problem. We could do that.
We can add an action,
Sure.
although it wasn't posted that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think presently, we may have another item for action, so we need to add a business item for action if that were the will of the board to table it until we could provide an explanation as to what specifically is requiring the district to incur. And just so you know, that's not to exceed, so that doesn't mean that the district will spend $50,000.
Right,
It
that's the
just-
budget.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the budgeted amount.
Right.
Right. So she sounds like she's planning for.
So Ms. Merklinger, are you feeling like we want to table it? We'll withdraw the motion and
I think, can we just table just that one? I don't want to table everything, just to get clarity for ourselves. To understand it.
Okay, so if we table that one, then we'd have to redo the motion to move everything with the exception of that one. Is that correct?
Yes, you
Mrs.
first you'd have to do a motion to table.
Okay.
Second, vote on it, discussion, vote. And if the motion passed, then you would, in the motion for those items, all items with the exclusion of
Okay,
number 7.
all right. So would you like to move that motion?
Sure. Not specifically sure what exactly you need to say, but can we just do what Terry just said? Can we table, just the learn well and move forward with the reminders?
Is that acceptable, Ms. Flowers?
Just to be clarified, we're looking at item number 7. Because that's the one, or are you looking at? item number
5
Item 5.
and 7, correct?
Correct.
Just learn well.
Right. Correct.
Everything else we would move.
Well, the motion for the motion for learn well for 21-22 is simply an approval of contracting with them in 21-22 at the revised rate. So did you want to table that motion as well? I didn't think that was your intention. I think it was just for the 2021 motion for the increase of expenditure to not exceed $50,000. In which case you would just simply need to put a motion to say, move that item number 7, B7 under business, be tabled. I can't make it though.
So tabling item C or B.
B.
B7.
All right,
moving
is
the
there a
rest forward.
second
No,
to table?
no, it wasn't.
I'm sorry, I want to make a point. I think it's item CA7.
Yes,
CA
yeah, I
Just for
see.
clarity.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're correct. You're right. It is CA7. Thank you.
Sure.
Gary.
Just want to make sure we
Okay,
don't table the wrong thing.
No, thank you.
that's right.
All right, so we have a motion to table item C, A7. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All right, Ms. Flowers?
Okay. Ms. Huerta,
Yes.
Ms. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Vice President Tunnicliff,
Yes.
President Trick Scales.
Yes.
Make a motion again to approve the item.
And now we have to do the motion to approve everything with the exception of C, A7. Is there a motion?
I'll motion.
All right, thank you, Ms.
I'll
Merklinger. Second, Vice President Tunnicliff.
Oh,
Any
I did have one more.
further?
I did have one more question.
Okay.
Hold on. I just wanted to recognize Coach Darnell Grant for the grant that the Giants provided to the West Orange High School football program. He was selected as the New York Giants and Gatorade Coach of the Year or Coach of the Week for week 9 of the football season. So I just wanted to recognize Coach Grant for that and for the generous donation that we received from the Giants Foundation.
Fabulous. All right, any other discussion?
Yes, just one question. In item 10, sub item 2, guarantee return. Could we just get an explanation of that item?
Can you define guarantee return? Item number 10, number 2, management fees and guarantees for the Mascios contract.
Repeat that, please,
wanna
Mr. Rothstein, I'm not with you.
Page 4.
Yes, we have Jeff right here in the audience. He can go into great detail about it.
Guarantee return is what Mascios guarantees that the district's food service program will have a surplus at the end of the 21-22 school year of $321,826. If the program does not have a surplus of that amount, Mascios will subsidize the difference up to that amount of money.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, are we ready for a vote? All right, Mrs. Flowers, please.
I'm sorry, if I may clarify, who I had Vice President Tunnicliff for the first, and who seconded? Do you have a second?
Did you second that?
I motioned and I think Jennifer second.
So Ms. Merkling.
Was that Ms. Merklinger who seconded?
She motioned
I
and
motioned.
Vice President seconded.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. So I have Vice President Tunnicliff as the second and Mrs. Merklinger for the first. Thank you. And now for the vote, Ms.
Was that, I just want to make sure that that was the motion and the second for the full slate?
Everything but.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So that,
Everything but the CBA 7.
because I think it was the same motion and second for the table too. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you for that
Little deja
clarity.
We're a little warm, we're fading
We're
fast.
fading. Okay, for the
I
vote,
can hear now.
Mrs. Werter,
Yes.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes,
Vice President Tunnicliff,
Yes.
President Trigg Scales.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Flowers. And now D, reports. Is there a motion to accept the HIB
yes, so
report?
moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mrs. Flowers, please do the honors for us.
Ms. Werter,
Yes.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes,
Vice President Tunnicliff,
Yes.
President Trigg Scales.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we're now up to petitions and hearings of citizens on any topic, agenda or otherwise. And we do have someone approaching the podium. Good evening, and thank you for being here with us tonight.
Okay, I wrote it down this time. My name is Susan Maccabee, 2
You
Mountain
may
Way.
remove your mask. Sure.
Susan Maccabee, 2 Mountain Way. I wanted to come to this meeting as we're almost at the end of the year. This past year, and really since the pandemic began, has been very hard on everyone. This year has really shown me the need for grace and understanding. There's been so much work done by everyone that it's a bit overwhelming. The administration had to make up all new policies and procedures. They had to change schedules around and figure out the coordination of school in a whole new way. Teachers have had to learn so many new computer programs and a totally new way of dealing with their classes. Grading work has also become much more complicated. It might seem like they have less work with half days, but there is so much more behind the scenes now. In addition, they have had to teach to 2 classrooms, in person and online. Parents have also had to do more work, either staying home with their kids or finding new childcare, types of childcare. I don't think anybody thinks that this year was great. For myself, not everything the school district has done this year has worked out well for my family, but I understand that my family is not the only family that is being considered. There are other families who've had much harder time than we have. The things that haven't worked out well for us have been teaching moments for our kids. Teaching them kindness, understanding, and that we need to lift up everybody as best we can in order to make it through tough times. Teaching them that an inconvenience for us is worth it when it is beneficial for a large portion of our community. Teaching them to extend grace to others who have been struggling. I am grateful that the guiding principle for this year has been keeping our kids and our teachers safe. We can learn another day if we can live another day. Learning may be delayed, but it is not lost. If we are lucky, it continues throughout our lifetimes. So thank you to the board for making the best choices you could at the time. Thank you to the administration for all the work to update our buildings, our policies, our procedures, and everything. Thank you to those behind the scenes who researched and coordinated. Thank you to the tech team for distributing tech to all families and all the new items to help teachers teach. And thank you to all of the teachers for all the extra hours updating curriculum, learning new tools, and doing your best to teach our children in a year where distraction levels are so high. Thank you.
What a note of gratitude. We appreciate that so much, so very much on behalf of everyone. Dr. Cascone, I'm sure you want to respond to that before we get to our other two questions.
I would just echo President Trigg-Scales' appreciation and thanks for those truly enlightened sentiments, statements. And we appreciate you and your family and everything you've done to clearly to support us at home and helping to keep the things in perspective for your children. And we look forward to better times ahead. So thank you so much, Ms. McAbee.
Thank you, Mrs. Flowers. We have two questions.
Yes, thank you, President Trigg-Scales. We have two community members who used our Google form to submit questions and comments on non-agenda items. The first one comes from Ms. Julie Bookbinder. Her question and comment: how do you plan to meet the governor's requirement that all schools to provide full-time in-person instruction for the 2021-2022 school year? And the next submission was from Ms. Myra Bachrock. She says, stated, my questions are related to curriculum. If the board meeting is not an appropriate forum, please let me know how to better direct my questions. Has the district addressed curriculum changes required to meet the New Jersey 2020 Computer Science Student Learning Standards? The New Jersey Computer Science Standards have been expanded significantly. All students must meet or exceed them by fall 2022. Has there been any discussion of adding AP computer science principles into the high school curriculum? The computer science courses in the program of studies, non-CTE, are mostly programming. Computer science entails much more than programming. There are 5 disciplinary concepts in the New Jersey 2020 CS, SLS, and programming falls into only one of them, algorithms and programming. AP Computer Science Principles is a survey course and introduces students to the 5 disciplinary concepts. Thank you, Myra Bachrock. And that completes our questions and comments on non-agenda action items submitted through our Google form.
Thank you, Ms. Flowers. Relative to Ms. Bookbinder's question, I do believe I addressed that in response to Ms. Merklinger's questions earlier in the evening. So I will let those comments stand as stated earlier. Question about computer science. It's a great question. Great set of questions clearly raised by a parent, a community member with a sharp and informed lens as it relates to these standards. Indeed, we do offer computer science courses at the high school, but how are we creating a K-12 articulated sequence for computer science? And how are we ensuring that all students, not simply by virtue of choice, are having exposure to those opportunities? These are questions that need to be answered. As I always am in public, I'm transparent in that we have work to do. We have work to do in this regard. Our offerings are strong, but Ms. Bakar, I've made note of your question and have every intention of following up with our curriculum instruction assistant superintendent and math supervisor under which department these currently reside. So I really appreciate that question and we'll be following up. And in terms of the appropriate forum, I think this was a great place to start because it'll lend a certain degree of public visibility to the question, which is always a good thing. And now we can drill down more on the department and curriculum level to address it. So I appreciate the question.
Thank you, Dr. Cascone.
You're welcome.
Were there any other comments? Or did I hear someone say something? Okay, so we are now up to report from the board president and our board members. So I'm going to start because I saved my comments for this point. So I just wanted to say what we all know, it's been a very long and challenging year, and we're all relieved that it's ending up on a positive note. Things are opening up. They look far more normal than they have in the last 15 months. My personal spirit has been lifted as I've been able to attend several events with my fellow board members, the Memorial Day celebration, or it could have been the Senior Athletic Awards evening, or it could have been the Bethany Church Center for Champions Appreciation Brunch, or the Pride flag raising at Town Hall, or the Our Green West Orange plant sale, which was all run by our students. And so we do look forward to the other end of the year activities where we will get to see our students and our staff and our families. And it makes us all very happy. That's why we chose to do this, to be a part of the community and to contribute to the community. And I wanted to mention something about another event that's coming up. We've heard a lot about Juneteenth, and our students talked about an activity that they have planned. And Juneteenth, which occurs on June 19th, is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States. It is also known as the African American Emancipation Day, or sometimes it's called Freedom Day, or it's been known as Jubilee Day. It originated in Galveston, Texas, where the last slaves were notified in 1865 that slavery had ended 2 years prior by the Emancipation Proclamation. And so today, Juneteenth emphasizes education and achievement and a time for reflection and rejoicing. It is now a state holiday as of September 2020 and will be the third Friday in June as we go forward. And the district is sponsoring an event in partnership with the West Orange African Heritage Organization on June 19th. And we ask you to look at Facebook, our webpage, and there will be more information coming. That event will be held here at the high school at 12 o'clock, and it is for a limited number of people. So we would ask, if you're interested in coming, we ask that you register in advance. And I think I read a quote by Charlie Chaplin, and like, who knew Charlie Chaplin spoke? But what he said was that it is even better than to be clever, to be kind and gentle. And so I would like to end on that note as we move forward, that it is much better to be kind and gentle than it is to be clever. Our next board meeting, were there any additional comments? Our next board meeting will be, yes,
For board reports now?
yes, I asked.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
mhm.
Did you want to do yours? You can go ahead first. Or is there a particular order? You can go because I probably the same ones. you.
Thank you, President Terry Trick Scales for that. I did want to, I forgot to mention Bethany Brunch. I don't know how on earth I could overlook that event because Bethany has had a great impact in my own personal life. I was able to attend the brunch with alongside Dr. Cascone and President Terry Trick Scales and my family, my entire family. Everybody saw them running around, falling and making a fuss. But Bethany is definitely home. And just to acknowledge Mr. Imani's comments about creating safe havens. And these are the kind of programs that I think we need to highlight, even though they are not directly from the school district, but they are in our communities and they are available for our students in terms of creating community and strong ties and having safe places for people to come. They are always accepting donations, volunteers, and students. You just come as you are. There's no obligation to do anything really. And so, except for just be there and build community, play some basketball and eat some pizza. And I was just very grateful to be a part of that as well. The PR committee, I guess I reversed my comments by accident. So the PR committee, we have been working. We are promoting our June 16th town hall event. We're looking forward to all of the feedback from the community. And we are working to have better access with our community and get more input and really make it known and make it clear that we do take the community's the community's input into consideration when we're making these important decisions. We really rely on not just the loudest voices or the most consistent voices, but everybody's voices. And we think it's very important for all of the community to be involved and engaged. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Merklinger, did you have? some
Yeah,
additional comments?
Thank you. So, kind of to go off of a lot of, with the reopening and things starting to open up, so being able to attend the Memorial Day ceremony, the high school senior athletic awards, the Strawberry Festival at Gregory, that was something that I grew up going to, and so it was fun to be back. The virtual awards that were done for the high school, so it's great to see all these things. I know that we have some pool parties coming up for, I think Edison had theirs yesterday or today, or coming up, Liberty, Roosevelt. So a lot of great things. Tonight, there was a pool party at the rec department held for our youth sports teams in town. When I tell you the number of kids that were having a great time and seeing just everyone laughing and being together again, it was really great. The spring band, if you have not seen it on Instagram or Facebook, I would definitely check that out. It's amazing to see just the different tiles and everyone playing, and it just sounds amazing. So, that's definitely something to check out. Lawn signs are going up. So if you have not received yours, reach out to your PTAs. Those are starting to pop up all over town. I think Melinda mentioned about the Mountaineer Auto Club is having a fundraiser for oil changes. If you reach out to Mr. Del Gercio, you can set up an appointment for one of the 2 dates. The softball team has their senior awards tomorrow night. And definitely, I just want to wish all of our seniors a very safe and enjoyable time at their prom, which is also coming up. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Any other additional comments? Yes, Mr. Rothstein?
Thank you. All right, just a couple of comments here. First of all, I wanted to say to Mrs. Maccabee, thank you so much for expressing so eloquently many of the personal beliefs and thoughts that I've had over this past year and about it. Really appreciate your comments very much. Also, thanks to President Trigg Scales and to Mrs. Huerta for speaking about Juneteenth. It's something that I've just honestly, like I think so many others, been ignorant of for all of my life until last year, really. And really appreciate the efforts of many in our community to bring it to the forefront and make sure that we're aware of so much more that we should be aware of. Also acknowledging Pride Month. And finally, I also wanted to speak briefly about the Memorial Day service that that many of us attended. What I wanted to speak about is that it appeared to me attending that ceremony that most of the people in attendance were men and women in uniform. And I make this comment not in judgment at all, because this was my first time attending a Memorial Day service here in West Orange or really anywhere. But I'm so glad that I attended. It was really emotional to see the veterans who were in attendance, to see the presentations that were made. And it was a real honor to see the students of our JROTC program participating as well. So I just wanted to say that I will be back next year for the ceremony. And I'm really hoping that I'll see a large crowd turn out to show appreciation for the men and women who serve our country, and to take a moment to remember those who gave so much for us and for our country. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Cascone.
Yeah, I always forget, and I always appreciate the board's reports because, I get so entrenched in the operations, and the board does a great job of, board members do a great job of highlighting some of the other great things that are going on in the district. But I do want to just give a shout out and recognition to all our senior award winners, right? We had our scholarship and senior award virtual ceremony the other night. So congratulations to all those individuals, and many thanks to all of the scholarship sponsors for their support of our seniors. And so, of course, we wish them the best of luck next year. And finally, I would just like to give a special thanks to our folks who are working the event tonight. Ms. Graftisa, Mr. Hagel, the gentleman sitting over there. Please stand up and be recognized, sir. And your name? Yes, sir. Oh, that's Nick. That's Nick. That's Matt. Okay, so Nick, Matt, Lauren, Mr. Santiago, who's right. Thank you so much. You pulled together the logistics for this quickly. You're here ensuring that our community is able to view the event live. So thank you very much. Please know that your efforts are appreciated and certainly do not go unnoticed. Thank you. And that is all, Mr. Scales.
Great. And I wanted to add, if you happen to go on to our Board of Ed link on our new revised webpage, you'll find Board of Education bios and FAQs, frequently asked questions. We're trying to make our Board of Ed page much more relevant and a place where people would like to go. So go read about us. It's really interesting. You can't live without it. And the FAQs. Okay, and again, we want to thank our crew that was here tonight. We can't thank you enough for making this happen. Thank you to everyone who joined us from home, and to the board members who were here, the members of the public who were here tonight, and our member of the press who joined us. So thank you for being here. You're the two people left with us at this point in time. So our next board meeting will be held at 7 p.m. on June 10th, which is a policy workshop. At this time, we are returning to executive session. And do I need to read that, or do you need to read that, Mrs. Flowers? All right. So at this time, I need a motion to adjourn the public meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Second,
Second.
Ms. Tunnicliff. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
No.